Hello, hello. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're watching and interested in what I have to say. And today I just want to share a little bit more of my church trauma, church abuse story. I feel like I just went through like one scenario after another. Um, and I was just sitting there thinking about, well, which one should I share now? So I am going to talk to you about my experience with dating and expectations of that from church leadership. And this, I'm just going to sort of like lump it together because this was in a few churches. I had gone through a divorce, and everybody has an opinion and everybody has advice. And in the flying monkeys came flying about. For those of you who know anything about the narcissist and how they work, the flying monkeys, after you finally stand up and say no. So that had happened, and there was the flying monkeys, coming around and trying to get me to come to my senses, to um, get out of sin, so to speak, and get right with God, because I was backslidden and I was in rebellion, and I would never be able to marry again, because God hates divorce, which, that may be true, but God also um, looks at our hearts. And He knew that my spouse had divorced me in His heart many years before that. So um, that's a whole other story. But anyway, so I was, they would come into my place of work, my business, and try and talk some sense into me. And at this time, I wasn't even a part of that particular church anymore. In fact, that was a church that we had been asked to leave about a year and a half before. So, and there were, groups of them. And at that point, I thought, geez, this is really like a cult. These people are crazy. And, I kind of still think that for the most part. They didn't know anything about my marriage, and they didn't know anything about me really at that point. And as far as I was concerned, um, they really didn't care, because we were asked to leave because we wouldn't submit, because we were in rebellion. And all the red flags that I've talked about in other videos. And I was nervous. I was scared when they would come in, because I was coming out of an abusive situation, and I was very stressed out. And anyway, so I was going to a different church, and at, at one point, I had made the decision to not date, or even consider that for um, you know a long chunk of time, just because I had lost who I was, and I didn't even really know myself anymore. And I knew in my heart of hearts that I needed to have some healing. I was a single mom. I had a business. I knew that there were some things that I needed to do for me, because I had neglected myself. Because that is another thing, that we're taught in the church is, you're selfish. You take care of everybody else. You're others centered. And while that may be true, their version is often that you don't take care of yourself, that you do everything and take care of everybody else because that's Christ-like, and you neglect yourself. And that's not true. That's a lie. So I didn't really know who I was. I didn't know what I liked to do. There was a lot of things. I was very wounded. Anyone that's been in relationship with a narcissist or been through any form of abuse, you know what I'm talking about. And so I didn't want to be involved with anyone on that kind of a level for quite some time. So that had been my decision. And then I was in a new church, and you know, I was in my, I was well into being an adult. Internet is unstable. There we go. I think it's back up. So the whole purity movement, you know, covering yourselves, and that's kind of a different video. I may touch on that a little bit just from my perspective. I was not raised in the church, so I wasn't raised in the purity movement. And I also had enough sense that a lot of the stuff that they teach, I didn't agree with. And I was very, you know, vocal about that. And of course, I was accused of a lot of things because I was outspoken about that. Anyway, I was expected to group date. And I thought, actually, at first, it was so just out there to me that my thought was, well, maybe they just need chaperones for like the high school kids dating. That was my, you know, and I remember talking to somebody and saying, yeah, I wonder if that's what it is, because if they need a chaperone, then, you know, I'd be more than happy to go hang out with them while they're, you know, on a group date or an outing or something. But I thought it was hilarious. And then I realized that it was actually something that they expected, because it was safe. Because I guess we're not capable of making right choices. We need other people controlling us and controlling our environment. And that is very much putting someone in a box and telling them that they cannot trust themselves. And so I just, because coming out of my situation, I didn't really trust myself anyway. You know, I was kind of learning all about who I was, and I was still going through this like terrible divorce thing. And so that was, you know, well, are you dating? Who would you date? Jean, what does God say about that? And, you know, is this person a healthy? This was all the thing all the time. Oh, well, so-and-so's not healthy. No, you don't want anything to do with them because they're not healthy. Nope, so-and-so's not healthy. They're not healthy. And so then I started getting this view of, you know, Christian men, like, here, I'm in the church, and shouldn't they, you know, be somewhat like-minded? But they're not healthy, they're not healthy, they're not healthy. Okay, well, how do you know this? How do you know this? So there was just so much like judgment and gossip surrounding it. And then the flip side of that was, hey, we have this great, you know, this great guy. We think that, you know, this is a God thing, that you two should be together. Yeah, well, that was a complete mess. And that was, looking back, was just kind of, that was hilarious too. But it was a mess. Um, and so there's these just weird like things, you know, you should be with this person, and no, you shouldn't be with that person. And um, you know, God hates you, can't remarry. It was just nothing but just control and manipulation. And you know, you're a single divorced woman in the church who's a business owner and a mom, and you know, I'm outspoken, and I have this BS meter that it goes off. And you know, I'll call BS when I see BS. And I was just accused of so many things. I was accused of being a Jezebel because, you know, these weak men, that when they realize they can't control and manipulate you, then of course that's what they call you. And honestly, I wasn't really in a place, I really didn't even want to, but that's the whole thing, is marry you off, you know? You should be married. And my my thing was, no, I need to know who I am, and um and just, be me and be a mom, and raise my children and enjoy that, and get healthy. I had a lot of wounding. I had a lot of things that needed to be healed in me. And, that's the other thing. Oh, no, you're not ready to be in relationship. They know, I just talked about red flags in my video. I did a video on YouTube, and then I did some smaller ones on other social media, Instagram and Facebook. You can check those out. Where I talked about the top 3 red flags and how this all ties in. And even as I'm sharing this part of my story with you now, I'm actually seeing how those 3 things tied into this whole dating thing, and just how controlled and put in this tight little box I was. And, you to date somebody who was not a Christian, it's like you were going to burn in hell if you did that. And so that was, off the table. So who in this little group, um, they want to marry you off on one hand, and on the other hand, it's you're not ready, and so-and-so's bad, and so-and-so's bad, and so-and-so's bad. And yeah, I just wanted to have friends and hang out and get healed. And yet I was, there were these expectations put on me, and then there was also these rules put on me. You can, but you can't. And when you think about dating, it's, there's no sex before marriage. And, if you are alone together, things could happen. And, um, you know, if you have sex before marriage, then, nobody's going to want you because that means you're an ungodly woman. And there's just so much nonsense surrounding it. And so I wanted nothing to do with it. I wanted nothing to do with Christian men. And it's what do they tell you? Someone who's like-minded. You need to be somebody who's like-minded. Well, what does that mean? I mean, I didn't feel like I was like-minded with 90% of the people that I went to church with. Why? Because nobody is themselves. They're like little bots, and it was just weird. It was so weird. And then when I did date, it was constant. Well, you need to be accountable to somebody. You have to have an accountability partner. Do they have an accountability partner? Where are you going? What are you doing? Who are they hanging out with? Have you talked about marriage? I mean, it was just such control and accountability part for what? Like, are you having sex? Did he touch you? What did you wear? I mean, it was just such a controlled, and even talking about it, I think, oh my gosh, that was like so much grosser than I remembered it being. And this just went on and on and on and on and on. And then, years later, I did marry again. And this person came highly recommended by the church community. And turns out, they were like really mentally ill, and they had been in leadership. Um, and, knowing what I know now, I think it totally fits. There are so many narcissists in leadership within the church entity. And yes, he was a narcissist, borderline personality disorder, and nobody. No. Oh, great guy, great guy, great guy. Yeah. Well, we were divorced in 10 months. And 8 months of that was spent in marriage counseling, um, different ones. And I ended up in a church that he wanted to go to. And that pastor was a narcissist and very abusive. And in fact, that pastor told me one day, we had been separated, and he said, you know what? You need to let me pick your next husband. I wouldn't have done this. And I thought, At this time, I had only been married for like 4 months. And this is what this pastor said to me. And I felt wrong. I was terrified because here I was again. I was such chaos. Um, Even just having friends, and then the thought, the pressure to be married, or like you couldn't even really just casually date or anything. It was just, um, it was horrible. It was just horrible. It was horribly abusive, controlling. Um, it was horrible. It was just horrible. It was horribly abusive, controlling and manipulative, and um, very cultish. And so then when this divorce did happen, this church that I was at, and all, they just completely, they cut me off completely. Some of my very close, well, I thought we were close friends, just completely cut me off. I was accused of things, and it was, this church, this pastor had a 1% divorce rate, and so um, even though I was not the one who initiated the divorce, it was the best thing that happened to me. Um, I probably would have ended up dead if that hadn't have happened. So, um, yeah, it was very abusive, and then to be cut off. But I have to say, God is good. I didn't blame God at all. I did a lot of blaming of myself, and I made some poor choices. But I don't beat myself up about that. And I'm certainly not to date anybody in the church. I didn't want anything to do with any, Christian men in the church. I didn't want anything to do with men, period. And not um, in a way that, I hate men, because I don't. I've had some great male friends, and I've had some great male role models and things in my life, by the grace of God. Because otherwise, everything that I have been through, I could very easily hate men. Um, and that was something for a while that I did. It was a battle, because I could have easily done that. Um, and I don't. They're wounded men, and they're turn things around. And I've had some horrible experiences with, church men and stuff. Like, it just, dating and telling me, oh, well, we're supposed to be, or, God told me this. And it's like, that to me, and if it doesn't ring true, oh, well, you're just not ready yet. No, you're just a nut. Really? So let me end on something positive here, and what something like healthy looks like. If you're a believer, if you're a Christian, and you're, in a church entity, um, you have a gut feeling. In your heart of hearts that the person, let's say you're going to date somebody, you like somebody, deep, in your heart of hearts, whether that is right or wrong. Okay. Nobody has the right to tell you otherwise. Keep your dating life outside of the church people. Pressure to get, living together is sin. It's all sin. It's all sin. You just got to, get married. Or it's like they don't even talk about what it is to get to know somebody. Get to know them. A group dating, how do you know if you're even going to like that person one-on-one if you're always in a group? It's just common sense. I am not advocating that you go and sleep around, or have sex or any of that. That's not my place. What I'm saying is spend time with that person, get to know them, um, and Don't let anyone within the church influence you. Think about it this way. If you weren't in the church and you met a guy at the grocery store, let's just say that you don't even go to church, none of that. You meet a guy, or men, you meet a woman at the grocery store, or, whatever. You meet somebody you like at the grocery store and you decide you're going to go on a date with them. You don't know anybody that knows them, right? You go and you spend time. You get to know them. You talk to them, you have coffee, you have dinner, take a walk, what have you. If people that don't go to church are capable of doing that, then so are we that do go to church. Too many hands, too many opinions. And all of these people that were telling me, oh, so-and-so is a train wreck, so-and-so is a mess, or so-and-so, they don't know. And then the one that I did marry, people were like, oh, great guy, great guy. He turned out to be the biggest abusive nut, right? So my dating tip for you is this accountability thing is nonsense, right? Nonsense. Get to know somebody. Don't get people's opinions. Find out for yourself because right? You know, and you know, and you know. Save yourself some grief, right? Just, date like normal. Okay. I don't know. That's just my thing. So anyway, it was just it was a mess. And then, people want to know leadership, the interview, they want to know. So, how did the date go? Did you have, it just, it's none of their business. It really is not any of their business. That is my personal opinion. You can have yours. Another note on the whole purity thing, women do not cause men to sin. They do not cause men to stumble, okay? And vice responsible for the decisions that you make. It doesn't matter like what you're wearing. Doesn't, I'm a very visual woman. Women are visual, just like they teach that men are. Women are too. So that's all I'm going to say. Anyway, I would love to hear from you. If you could relate to any of that, let me know. If you have questions about dating in the Christian world, or if you are in an abusive, controlling situation, or you feel pressured, should not ever feel pressured to marry or to date somebody in particular, or to, not, there should never be that kind of pressure. I mean, seriously, dating and or maybe you end up being friends, or, who knows? Maybe you end up being together. Nonsense in the church. So, hey, if you need help with anything like that, questions, let me know. You can comment below, or if you had like weird Christian dating abuse stories, let me know too. I'd love to hear from you. I hope this helps, buddy. I know it was kind of not super detailed, but I don't want to expose names or anything like that. That's not who I am. So, all right. I love you, and I will see you next time.